So this is our painting for today. It is based on the eclipse. I was lucky enough to see the total eclipse this past weekend, which was really cool. And I just could not get it out of my head. So I wanted to paint it. I did this off of a little bit of a reference photo, but not too much. This is more just kind of my impression of what it looked like to me. And so I'm really excited to do this. It's a really fun little effect that you can do here with the watercolor paint. And then we can do a little landscape underneath just to kind of ground everything in the landscape, right? So you need your watercolors and you need your paper. I will go over my materials here really quick. I will also be referring back to this, so you will not, you'll see that again. My paper here is Strathmore watercolor paper. This is pretty cheap watercolor paper. You can find it at any art store. It's good for practice or for beginners. It's also just like good quality paper. I've taped out a little 6x9 area here, or wait, 8x9? I don't know. Something like that. My paints are Winsor&Newton. These are professional watercolor paints. You do not need professional watercolor paints. Just whatever you happen to have on hand is totally fine. My brushes, as per usual, are Princeton Neptune. So I'll probably use, let's see, I might use a big one today. We might end up using this 3/4 wash. So this is a big watercolor brush here. And then I've got a couple smaller ones just to use for details. And then I've got a little tiny 2-round detail brush from Christy Rice's painting set. So those are my brushes. I've got my water. My masking tape was from Blick. And I think that's all of the supplies we have for today. So our general idea for this painting is we are going to do a fun little gradient for the sky. We might do, I think I did 2 layers when I did this, so we might end up doing 2 layers. It just depends on how fast everything dries and how saturated our colors are. And then once that's dry, we can do our little, what was I going to say? Our little landscape underneath. And you can be creative with that as well. So I'll give you some options. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, as usual, is put some water in each of our watercolor pans. And especially if you're using dry watercolors, this just helps to dissolve all of our paint and get it ready for painting with. So I just use my brush and put a little drop of water in each color. I may not use every color, but you never know. So it's good to have it ready. And while I'm doing this, just my usual little spiel is that this is all for fun. And I hope you enjoy the little lesson, and I hope you can get into the mindset of like you're learning and you're just practicing and you're having fun rather than I'm gonna be here to make a perfect painting. I hope you just kind of have fun and enjoy, and it'll be a lot easier and more fun to keep watercoloring if you have that kind of a mindset, especially if you're new to watercoloring. So keep that in mind. Also, feel free to ask any questions in the comments as we go through. I will try to answer all of them as I see them. I do have to talk and paint at the same time though, so just give me some patience with that. And then be kind to yourself, be kind to others in the chat, all of that good stuff. Okay? So the first thing that we need to do is figure out where our sun is going to be on this paper. So I'm going to use a coin. I keep little coins kind of near my art desk in case I ever need circles. And I'm just going to put that wherever I kind of want the sun to be. So I don't like to put it like dead center here. I might put it just kind of off to the side here, just a little bit, and trace around. If you do not have a coin handy or something circular, you can either just find something circular on your desk, like a glue stick, or what else is usually, like a chapstick is usually good, or coin, or you can just freehand a circle. You don't need to have a perfect circle here. The idea will be there regardless. So I've got my little circle there. My paints are dissolving. So we are going to mix up our first colors. So I'm going to mix up a darker violet color for the top, some ultramarine blue as a transition shade, and then some yellow and some orange, and we'll kind of do a gradient that way. But because it's a gradient and you need all of your colors kind of in quick succession, you want to mix them before you get started painting. So I'm going to kind of walk you through my paint mixes. They don't have to match mine exactly, but this is just what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take some ultramarine blue plus a little bit of magenta, plus a little bit of Payne's gray, which is kind of a dark bluish gray. If you don't have Payne's gray, you can use black, but this is mostly blue just a little bit of magenta and a little bit of Payne's gray. Mixing together, and we want to keep it fairly saturated because we want a good amount of color, and you also want to mix a good amount of color in your palette here because it needs to cover a fair amount of this page. So I'm going to make sure I keep adding water and then I keep adding paint just a little bit at a time until I've built up enough color that it'll cover about half of my paper here. Okay. And I can swatch that for you as well. So that's what that color looks like. Kind of a bluish, slightly purple color. Okay. Our next color is going to be just a regular blue as a transition shade. So I'm just going to use ultramarine blue, put that into a separate area of my mixing palette here. Again, a fairly strong mixture of this color, but you do still want to add water. So then we've got this as our next color. I'll kind of show you how they transition together. And then we want some yellow. So I'm just going to use the cadmium yellow that's on my palette here. Whatever yellow you have will be totally fine. And we are going to water down the yellow a bit. We don't want this one to be too strong. So add some water. So there's that yellow. And then we're going to mix up a orange. So I'm going to do yellow plus some magenta. Probably more yellow than magenta. That'll give you a little sunset orange. Okay. There you go. I need to add more water to that. So we want to water down the orange as well. So first two colors, the purple and the blue, fairly strong, fairly saturated colors. The yellow and the orange should be watered down. Okay. Magenta, blue, and it was Payne's gray. So black or gray, whatever you have in your palette, that was the mixture for this one here. The rest of these were just colors from my palette. Okay, so this is kind of our gradient here we're going to be working with. And this is going to be a good time. So I'll give you one more minute, or a few more seconds, I should say, to mix up those colors and get them ready. You don't worry about getting blue in your magenta? No, not really. Watercolors are very saturated when they're in the pans like that. And so even if you get a little bit of color into a different pan, it won't really affect the actual color. So that is fine. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you all for the likes as well. We're up to 9,000 likes, which is really cool. Thank you so much. Feel free to keep double tapping the screen. Helps me out. Okay, so our general idea here for the background is going to be a gradient, but we're going to do something special with the sun because it's an eclipse. We want to have this light area kind of around here that will show the sun's, corona behind the moon. So what we're going to do is put a little layer of water in that circle and just a little bit outside of it, and then kind of avoid it as we're painting the gradient. So I'm going to show you, and I'm going to kind of get started and walk you through the gradient. If you'd like to paint with me, you can, or if you want to just watch me, I will give you time to catch up afterwards, okay? So I'm going to take a small brush and put a little bit of water into my circle here, and I'm just going to color outside the lines a little bit with this water. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to go a little bit of outside the lines with the water. And you want a good layer of water in there. Okay. Now, I need you to use a big brush, whatever large brush you have, and you're going to start with that purple color that we mixed. Get that onto your large brush, and we are going to start at the top and work our way down, covering about half of the paper with this purple color. So I'm just going to start up here. I like to do horizontal strokes and just start working my way down. And as I get to the sun here, I'm just going to kind of stop my brush strokes as they reach that water that I put down. And so you can see it'll start blending together with that water. And we're just going to keep working our way down. It doesn't have to be super exact, but you can see that texture there that's starting to happen as it spreads out. Continue working until I've covered about half of the page with this purple color. Then I'm going to switch to my blue. I'm not going to rinse my brush or anything. Don't worry about that. And put in a little bit of blue here, blending directly into the purple. And I'm just going to go back up with my brush just to blend that out a little bit. Okay. Then, before we go on to our next colors, I'm going to rinse off my brush and use some clean water and just go right underneath this stripe of blue here with clean water, just blending that out a little bit. Okay. Then you can go to your yellow. Blend that in with that water. And then don't even wash your brush, just go into the orange and fill in the rest of the page. Okay, so that's the gradient. I will talk you through that instruction one more time, just what I did. So I put the water into the sun there. Then I started with the purple color, filled up about half the page, switched to the blue, filled up another quarter of the page, put in a stripe of clear water underneath the blue, then added the yellow, and then added the orange. And while that's still damp, you can use a clean, damp brush to go back over. Again, I like to use horizontal strokes and just blend these two colors together a little bit. You might get a little bit of green here because the blue and yellow is mixing, but because of that stripe of water there, it shouldn't be too bad. You can see that's a nice blend there without being green. Okay. And what's really cool is that you can see the kind of texture that's happening with the water here. That's really what I wanted, all that cool texture there. So I tried not to mess with that too much. You can see it turns into kind of a sun corona, which is very cool. Okay, so there is our gradient. I'm going to let this dry. I think I might do one more layer over the top of this. So doing one more layer will help the gradient be a little bit smoother, and it will also deepen the colors a little bit. So we're going to let it dry. You have some time to catch up and do this, and then we are going to probably just do that again. Lack the patience of letting it dry between steps. A hairdryer is your best friend. I also lack a lot of patience when it comes to watercolor and life in general. And a hairdryer speeds that up tremendously. So would recommend just keeping a hairdryer by your art desk or wherever you happen to be painting. Helps a lot. If we have any questions, art-related questions, feel free to ask while we're kind of catching up. I will do my plug one more time. Not one more time, you're going to hear this a few times. My watercolor book, Watercolor Wanderlust, is out now. It's been out for a couple weeks now. And I'm super excited to have this out and have you guys have access to this. So I hope you're enjoying it if you already have it. But this book is full of 24 complete lessons to make some landscape paintings. And so it's just it's not a ton of like individual techniques. You're going to be painting full landscapes with this book. So please check it out. It's basically these paint and sips in a book form. So please check it out. It's linked in my bio, and you can also find it anywhere that you find books. Yeah, please check it out. Makes my day. Can you show the inspiration picture again? Yep, you can see it here. The book is beautiful. Thank you so much. Where did the stripe of clear water go? It disappeared. It was right here. And the point of the clear water is because I'll kind of show you on this little swatch card here. So if I were to put the blue that we used here and then switch to the yellow right away, and I try to blend that together, it creates this yucky color right there in the middle, you know? Like it creates that kind of gross green color. But if you put a stripe of water in between those two colors, it kind of separates them a little bit. And so you maintain the brightness of the yellow and then also the kind of saturation of the blue, and they blend together nicely without creating that nasty color. Do you always swatch out the colors? Yes, I try to, so that you can see them kind of separated. In the book as well, I swatched all of the colors. So in every book lesson, you'll see color swatches too. I feel like they're helpful. I miss how you made the sun. So I just put some water in this circle here, and then I painted the sky in the background over it, and the water kind of spreads into the pigment, and it makes that kind of texture, which is really cool. So I like that a lot. Hot press or cold press paper preferred? I prefer cold press. I like the texture of cold press paper better. Okay, any other questions? Specific type of tape. I just use masking tape. I often got it from the hardware store. I've got it from Blick, which is an art store. Yeah, I just prefer masking tape. Are you self-taught? I am somewhat self-taught. I took art classes in high school, and I was an art minor in college. But once you get to college, a lot of your classes are just like studio classes. You're not really learning a ton of techniques. So I certainly took art classes in high school and such, but I also did practice a lot on my own. Okay, how are we doing on the dryness? Okay, that is totally dry. So we are going to do this again. This is an optional step. If you are happy with your gradient and happy with how it turned out, you do not have to do any more. You can stop there and just kind of hang out until we reach the next step. But I'm going to do another layer on my painting. So I'm going to mix up same colors that we already used. Just exactly the same way. Same saturation and everything. Just make sure we're mixing enough. That's always the hard part. Let's see, I was going to say something else, and it's gone from the brain. Any other questions? How do you make prints of your art? I have a scanner at home. It is an Epson Perfection V600 scanner, I believe. That's the style. And then I have a printer at home. It is the Canon Pixma IP8720, I think. And so I use fine art print paper, and I print out my own prints at home. I used to use like a drop shipping company, and I just prefer to have the immediate access to print out a print at home. Where can I purchase your watercolor palette? It is out of stock right now. The one that you're talking about, I assume, is the Artistro one. It is out of stock at this moment because we had a manufacturing issue, but it will be back in stock in late May, early June. Do you spray water on the paint when you start? I put drops of water in each of the colors. I just use my brush to do that, but I know some people like to use a spray bottle. Okay, so same technique as before. I'm gonna, again, put a little water in the sun area here so we don't lose all that fun texture that we got before. So I'm starting with just a little bit of water in the sun, and then I'm going to switch back to my big brush and just do exactly the same thing as we did before. Starting at the top, horizontal brush strokes, avoiding that sun area, just kind of touching the paint to that water, but not really painting over the sun. And we're going to fill in about half of the page with this color. Okay, and then without even cleaning the brush, I can switch to my blue. Put that right below the purple, blend that out a little bit. Then again, I'm going to clean off my brush and just put a strip of water, clean water, right underneath that blue, like we talked about before, to let that yellow blend nicely there. Then I go into the yellow. And then we go into the orange to finish it out. Okay, so you can see there that that second layer really kind of deepens that color, and it helps with the gradient as well, just helps blend everything together. And I can use a clean, damp brush to blend the kind of tricky part, which is that blue into the yellow. But you don't want to overblend here, just kind of a little bit and then leave it alone. Okay, do you always do a second layer? Not always. Sometimes you want that softer color to kind of show through, and you want a softer sky, so you just want the one layer. But oftentimes I find the 2 layers really helps with just the saturation of the color. So it just depends. Another thing you can do before everything dries is use a completely dry brush. And if you need a little bit of extra detail around the sun here, you can use that dry brush to pick up a little bit of this pigment and give yourself a little bit more of like a halo effect around here. I really like all that texture that's happening around there, so I'm mostly going to leave it alone, but just going to add a little bit there, and that's an option for you as well. Okay, so now we're going to let this dry completely. I might use my hair dryer after a little while just to kind of speed things up so we can keep moving. But hopefully you're happy with your sky so far. Again, here's the reference photo, or the reference painting, I should say. So we have done our sky, we've done our kind of halo around the sun. I like how this texture is turning out. This one's a very soft kind of glow around the sun there, but this one's more of like a very sharp details, and I kind of like how that's turning out. Okay, any other questions while we hang out for a second? I have a hard time getting the same saturation of color. Any tips? It could be due to your watercolor palette. That is a possibility. I don't know which one you're using. However, a lot of times you need to be a little bit more aggressive with your paints. So adding plenty of water before you start so that that water dissolves the paint is really helpful. And then really digging your brush in there and getting that pigment out and onto your paintbrush is helpful too. Don't be gentle. Get in there with your brush. Did you paint the sample on different paper? Yes, I did. This is on Arches paper, and this is on Strathmore paper, so these are slightly different papers. And you can see that they kind of slightly turn out differently, which is not a bad thing. It's also, it was also more humid, actually, when I painted this, and it's drier today. And so you can get a little bit more texture in the gradient when it's dry outside because the paint dries way faster. So that's kind of a little fun fact, too. What is your approach to deciding what you're going to paint? That's a good question. I generally start with, like, I feel like painting. And then I will look through my phone, which has like 10,000 photos on it, and see which one kind of jumps out at me. I have a folder of like reference photos, but I just take a lot of photos of things that I might want to paint someday. So I look through that folder and see if I find anything that kind of sparks my interest. And usually I will within 5 or so minutes, sometimes even less, but sometimes I'm scrolling through my phone for like half an hour looking for something to paint. So those are not the fun times. Do you ever get tired painting? I do sometimes, but I kind of switch between lots of different mediums. So I'm working on an oil painting right now. I really like watercoloring. I like to use gouache. And so I can kind of switch between those. They're very different mediums. And so it kind of turns into a different experience for me. And so that kind of helps keep the burnout at bay. I still certainly get burned out, and I will take breaks for sure. But I love painting, and it's like breathing to me. So I really don't take too much of a break, ever. Okay. I find like 10. Yeah. I've been on a big water kick recently. I've been painting a lot of water. I can show you since we're taking a small break here. I am working on this big oil painting, which you can see over here, of some rocks underneath water. And it's very detailed. And so this is taking me a while. But I'm really liking how it's kind of coming together. So you can see that one there. But that just kind of hangs out by my art desk, and I work on it when I can. There we go. Thank you, thank you. Yes, this video will be watchable later. It'll be up on my YouTube channel later today or early tomorrow, so you can always watch it later. Okay, let's get back to this painting here. Let me see how dry we are. We're getting there. I might hit it with a hairdryer real quick, just so that we can move on and I can get through the lesson. Feel free to do the same if you've got a hairdryer on your end. Sorry for the noise if you can hear it. This just helps to kind of speed things up, and it's just annoying to have to wait for paint to dry. So I keep this hairdryer right here where I can access it at all times. Are you into urban sketching? I've gone through an urban sketching phase. I'm not very good at it, and I could probably use to practice more, but I just prefer landscape paintings. So I definitely have done it, and I've found it to be fun, but it's not my main thing. Okay. So now let's paint in the sun, because that's the part that we're all looking forward to. So what we need to do is mix up just a little bit more of this violet color that we used for the top half of the sky. So I'm just going to mix up that same color, just a little bit more of it. Water that down. And then with that color, we're just going to fill in the circle that we drew in the first part of this lesson. So you can see my pencil sketch there. I'm just going to use a smaller brush and carefully, with steady hands, paint a circle. For me, it helps to kind of paint the outside edge and then turn it so that I can continue painting the outside edge, because that's where I have the most control of my brush. So take your time. Doesn't have to be completely perfect. Resist the temptation to like fix little areas. As long as it's generally a circle shape, it will come across as a circle. My shaky hand can never, yeah. I have fairly steady hands, which is helpful. And there we go. All right, so our sun is painted in there. Or a moon, I guess I should say. That is the moon. And we've got our moon with the sun's corona behind it. And this is kind of cool. It kind of looks like the kind of end of an eclipse there, because the sun's kind of coming out on that side. So that's cool. Okay, so then we can just let that dry and we can move on to our landscape. Now, I want to give you a little bit of creative control over what you want to do with the landscape here. In this painting, I did a bunch of trees. I did 5 trees. And I started with a light green and then transitioned to a medium green and then went to a dark green here. And then I kind of went over the top once that was dry with a few little details in that dark green, just to add some little branches and stuff. So this is an option for you. If you feel comfortable painting trees, you can do that. I kind of want to experiment with a little mountain range at the bottom here, just for fun. So I'm going to do that. You can also do mountains and trees. There's nothing that says you cannot do that. So feel free to just kind of take creative control, add a landscape, do whatever you kind of want to do to ground this piece into the earth, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to do some mountains. I'm going to do purple, some purple mountains in the distance. So I'm going to go back to my mixing palette here. And I have this blue here, this ultramarine blue that we used for the sky. So I'm just going to continue using that. Add a little bit of alizarin crimson to make kind of a purple color. And then I'm going to add a little bit of brown to it. Create kind of a dusty purple color. Maybe a little more blue. Something like that. You can swatch that color. Island and palm trees would look great. Yeah, that's a great idea. You can do whatever you want with the bottom half of this painting. And I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do, but feel free to have creative control. Okay, so with this purple color, I'm just going to go to the bottom of my painting here and just kind of paint in just a little mountain range in the distance. This is where having shaky hands would be helpful, because the shakier that mountain range looks, the more natural it'll look. I'm just going to fill that into the bottom and let that dry. and I will do probably one more layer underneath it. And maybe we can add some trees in there at the bottom, just for funsies. Okay. Yeah, if you just joined now, the eclipse, all of this will be uploaded to YouTube. My YouTube channel is Hannah MP Art and Prints, so you can find it there. It is also linked in my bio, so you can find it through there too. While we're waiting for this to dry, I am going to do my usual plugs, just because you are a captive audience, and that's what you guys have to listen to. So in my bio is a link tree, and you'll find lots of things there. The first thing that you'll find in that link tree is my book pre-order, or I should say order website. So again, Watercolor Wanderlust is my book. Look, that's my name right there. It is out now. It came out April 2nd. I'm very, very proud of it. It is basically these paint and sip lessons in book form. And so you'll learn how to paint 24 unique landscapes, and you'll learn a lot of techniques kind of while you're painting these landscapes. So I'm really proud of how it turned out. Please make sure you check it out if you're interested in kind of doing these kinds of landscapes on your own time with my instruction. And it means a lot to me if you check that out. So that's the first thing. The second thing you'll find in my link tree is my Etsy shop. So please make sure you check out the paintings that I make on my own. That is how I make a lot of my money, and it's super important for people to kind of check out my Etsy shop. Even if you don't want to buy anything, just check it out, see if there's something in there you want to keep your eye on. Mother's Day is coming up, and I've got lots of flower-themed bookmarks and postcards and paintings. So if you want a meaningful gift for your mom or the mother in your life, make sure you check out my Etsy shop and support me. That's super, super helpful if you're willing to do that. You will also find my Patreon in my link tree, and so you can subscribe to me every month and you will get an extra video tutorial like this one that nobody else gets access to. You can also sign up for different tiers where you get some art every month as well from me. So that's up to you as well. And then at the very bottom of that link tree, you'll find a tab called Tip Jar. And so if you'd like to leave me a little tip or a gift for today's session, that is always very helpful. These are free lessons, but I do appreciate tips if you are willing to give one. So at the very bottom of the link tree is a tip jar tab, and it makes it easy to give me a tip, and it just goes straight to me. And that just helps me continue to do these lessons for free if you're feeling generous and want to leave me a tip for if you enjoyed today's lesson. So I think that's all my plugs for now. Bottom line is just check out my bio, check out my link tree. If you cannot support me in a monetary way right now, even just like giving a like and a follow and commenting on different videos that I post and all that is also very, very helpful. So don't feel like I don't appreciate you, even if you just support me on the internet and can't support me monetarily yet. If you can, that is always appreciated too. But if you can't, I do appreciate the support online more than you might imagine. So thank you for listening to that. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy checking out those links, checking out kind of how I make my living and what I do in all of my time in this little studio by myself. All right, so I'm going to add one more mountain layer down here. Let's see, flowers that last forever. Exactly. Let me just get through the questions here. Any opinion on watercolor blocks with glued sides? I've never been a big fan of those just because of the way that I work personally. I like to be able to just kind of put it away, and I never liked that I couldn't access the next pieces of paper without kind of giving up on the first one, on the painting that's on top. So I just have never been really into that personally, just kind of the way that I work with my paints, but I do think they're very convenient, and I know a lot of people really like watercolor blocks, so I won't say anything bad about them. Okay, I darkened up that lavender color that I used. Same colors, but I just kind of saturated it, added more paint, so it's more saturated, I should say. And I'm just going to add one more mountain layer, kind of right underneath the first one. So we have that depth and distance there. It looks like kind of far away. And maybe we'll add a few kind of distant trees down here too once that dries. We've got a little time. Will you release the recording? I came in late. Yep. My YouTube channel is also linked in my bio. It is called Hannah Art and Prints, or Hannah MP Art and Prints, something like that. You'll find it on YouTube. And it'll be posted there later today or early tomorrow. I use White Knights. Do you think Winsor&Newton are better? I like Winsor&Newton a lot. I have not tried a bunch of other watercolor brands, so I can't say that I like it the best because I've not tried everything. But I do like my Winsor&Newton paints. They're my go-tos for now. Love your paint and sips. Thank you so much. And I do want to do a check-in. How's everybody doing? If you're painting along with me, let me know how the painting's going so far. Let me know if you have any questions. Are they linked? Yeah, I have my Amazon storefront in my link tree as well. So if you want my art supply recommendations, you can go there for those too. I'm fine, just tuned in. Cool, cool, cool. I'm really happy with this one. Oh, that makes me so happy. So glad. Also, thank you all for the likes. We're up to 32,000. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Can you show the reference photo one more time? Yeah. Here is the reference painting, I should say. I didn't really base this one on a photo. I based it on kind of what I was looking at when I saw the eclipse. So I wanted to kind of capture that. New to watercolor, I had no art classes past elementary school. That's awesome. Thank you, Dad. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's awesome. You don't need to have any formal art training to be a successful artist. It really comes down to practice, and there's so much information available in book form, wink wink, and also just kind of on the internet that you can learn pretty much anything you need to know on your own. You just have to be kind of committed to it and keep practicing and everything. So don't feel like you're behind or anything like that. Having trouble with the sun, water isn't making any cool stuff. How can I fix? So that is just kind of, that's part of watercolor. And I hate to tell you this, but watercolor does whatever it wants. And so I got very lucky, and I'm very much happy with like how this texture turned out. I don't know how I did that. So I think it might be the paper and how the paints interact with the paper, but I really couldn't tell you. Like this one turned out so much differently. It's just kind of a soft glow. And so it kind of just depends on your materials. Now, if you were not getting this kind of light area, the halo around the sun, what you should do next time, because it's probably too late to do it now, is use a completely dry brush and kind of pick up the pigment around the circle that we drew to give you that light halo there. So you might have to manufacture that effect. I didn't really have to do much to make that happen, but on certain papers and stuff, you might have to do a little more work to make it happen. So you might have to use your brush to kind of pick up some pigment around there. So try that again. I tried salt. Salt didn't help. Yeah, I don't know if that would work too well, but always worth an experiment. So it doesn't seem like it worked. If we join your Patreon, are the lessons live or pre-recorded? They are pre-recorded. I do not do them live on Patreon. My paper dries too fast. Yeah, that's another problem too. Yeah, it just depends on the humidity in your area, and you got to work fast if it's dry. So this is the watercolor paper I'm using right now. This one is Arch's watercolor paper. Okay, I'm going to just hit the bottom mountain layer here with a hairdryer super quick. I apologize for the noise. I just want to get it dry so that I can show you how to paint some trees down here. Mine came out pretty cute. I'm so happy I finally made it 20 slides. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. Glad you're happy with how yours turned out. I will say as well, if you're painting along with me, I really like to see your paintings and how they turn out. So if you want to either send me a DM or post your painting on Instagram. I can't see DMs on TikTok. I can't see photos that you send me in a DM on TikTok, so it has to be Instagram. And I have the same handle on Instagram as I do on TikTok, so you can find me that way. And if you post your painting on your story, please tag me, and I will repost it on my story. We can see everybody's paintings. If you don't feel comfortable posting it on your story, feel free to send me a DM. I cannot guarantee I will respond to every DM, but I do look at them all, so I will see them. And yeah, I would love to see how your painting turned out. My painting could be the landscape of an alien planet. Love that. I love that. We are kind of going for a little sci-fi kind of effect here, so nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let's add a few trees down here. I'm going to use kind of just a dark color for some silhouetted trees, so I'm going to mix together ultramarine blue and some brown and some Payne's gray just to make kind of a dark, almost black color. You can water that down a little bit. if you have black in your palette already, you can just use that. You don't have to go through the trouble of mixing everything. Your plugs worked. I just bought a copy of your book. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You are the best. I didn't hear when you said to put a line of water and I got that muddy brown. Yeah. That's a mistake you only make once, and then you'll remember next time. So that's just a lesson learned. All right, so I'm gonna use my detail brush and just add a few trees down here. So I'm gonna make these pretty small, like we're kind of just seeing them in the distance. You can make some big trees in front of this if you want. The perspective does not really matter too much because you're kind of looking up into the sky. So it just kind of depends on where you want these elements to be. Feel free to make them as small or as large as you want. So I like to use my detail brush to make these trees, and they're gonna be evergreen trees. I draw a straight line for the trunk, and then I just kind of go back and forth, working my way down the trunk, adding some little kind of scruffy shapes for branches. And I kind of work in a Z shape or a zigzag motion here. And I like to just kind of bounce my brush around, let it make some interesting shapes, and just work my way down like that. This does take a little bit of practice, but once you kind of get the pattern, you can make a lot of trees pretty quickly. And then towards the bottom here, you can just kind of fill in something like that. Maybe I'll make another one kind of right next to that one. As Bob Ross says, the trees always need a friend. So I'll just give him a little friend here. Thank you all for the likes as well. No, this is just, this is watercolor. I just mixed up a dark black color using ultramarine blue, Payne's gray, and a little bit of brown. I don't have black in my palette. I don't really like to use black, so I just kind of mix my own dark colors when I need them. Let's see, I'm gonna kind of just scatter these trees around the composition here. So let's add one here. I don't know, you can just add trees wherever you want. So again, I'm just kind of working my way down, kind of pressing my brush down randomly so I get those kind of thick branch shapes, and then kind of pulling up on my brush so I get the thin edges. Working my way down. Let's put one like right here. You can use these trees to cover up anything as well. If there's anything in your painting that you didn't like how it turned out, cover it up with a tree. I'll definitely be waiting for this to be posted on YouTube. Yep, it'll be posted later today or early tomorrow, just kind of depending on how fast it'll upload. But I will be posting when it's live on Instagram, and all of the previous paint sips are up there as well. So if you want to follow a previous lesson, you're welcome to do that as well. And subscribe to my YouTube channel while you're there. If this app ends up getting banned, I will probably be shifting over to YouTube. Mostly, so I would appreciate it if you want to keep following me. Subscribe on YouTube so you don't lose me. I love your Artistro palette. Thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. I'm sorry it's out of stock right now. If anybody was interested in getting it, it will be back in stock in the end of May, early June. There was a manufacturing issue that kind of came up, and it's fixed now, but it's just taking a while to get the palette back in stock. So it'll be back soon. If you were interested in grabbing that palette that I made with Artistro, I really like it personally. And I would definitely recommend it to anybody who wants a new watercolor palette. Have you worked with pan pastels? I got a full set of them as a gift and I have no idea how to use them. No, I have not. I have seen quite a few videos of people working with those, and they seem fun. I just have not, I'm not really a huge like dry media kind of gal. I'm very much a paint kind of gal, so I don't really work with like charcoal or pencil all that much either. Thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube. I appreciate it. What days do you normally go live? I usually do these lives on Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time, so this exact time. I will always announce it on the Thursday before, so you'll see in my TikTok channel there will be a live event scheduled for that Saturday if I'm hosting one, and then I will announce with a video as well on Thursdays. So if you're ever wondering, just check on my channel on Thursdays and you will see if there's a live that is planned for that Saturday. But they are always at this time, so you can kind of put that in your schedule if you're interested. What size is that detail brush? It is a 2-round. This is from Christy Rice's painting set. I can show you where it came from. She has these. Get in there. Yeah, she has these Art for Joy's Sake brushes that she sent me to try out. They're awesome. I have not used these other ones because they're probably more gouache brushes, or just the way that I use watercolor. I need them to hold a little more water, but I use this one all the time, this little detail brush for my gouache and watercolor paintings. Okay, I think we are pretty much done. I'm going to add one more little detail, which is optional for you to do, but I like to. When the eclipse happened, you can see a few planets because it gets dark in the middle of the day, which is really cool. So I'm going to use a little bit of gouache to add some little dots in the sky to look like planets. You don't have to use gouache. You can use acrylic paint. You can use like a white gel pen. You could use whiteout. It does not really matter. Any sort of white paint will do. The white paint in your watercolor palette, if you have it, is not quite opaque enough to do this effect. It has to be a more opaque paint. So just keep that in mind. Whatever kind of opaque paint you might have at home would work best. And you don't have to do this as well. This is an option. Okay, so I might just add like, I don't know, 3. Not overdo it. Something like that. Okay, and I think I'm gonna leave it there. I really like how that landscape at the bottom turned out. I think that looks really cool with the eclipse there. So I'm quite happy with how that turned out. I do like the trees as well, but I liked experimenting with both. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take off the tape. This is the best part, so thanks for sticking around for that. There we go, nice clean edges. So one more time, I'm gonna plug my stuff because that is what I have to do. In my bio, you'll find a link tree, and in that link tree, you will find several things. You'll find the pre-order, or sorry, I keep saying that, the order website for my book, Watercolor Wanderlust, which is essentially these paint and sips in book form that you can work through on your own time. It's 24 lessons, and I'm super proud of the book. And so if you're interested in learning more landscapes from me, kind of self-paced, please do check out the book. It would mean a lot to me. Again, I'm very proud of it, so I'm very excited for people to enjoy painting with it. You'll also find my Etsy shop, which is linked in my bio as well. All of my paintings that I sell are on there. I've got lots of prints, postcards, bookmarks, lots of fun stuff, lots of flower-themed stuff, just pretty art. If you are looking for a Mother's Day gift, that is a great spot to check out, so make sure you check that out for your Mother's Day shopping. Support a local-ish artist, depending on where you're located. And that would mean a lot to me as well. You can check out my Patreon if you want to get these tutorials regularly. You get an exclusive tutorial. You also get some art from me, so you can check out the Patreon. And you can also leave me a tip or a gift for today's lesson if you are so inclined. That is always, always appreciated. Whatever you feel like donating is totally fine and, like I said, appreciated. And so if you scroll to the bottom of my link tree, you will find a tab called Tip Jar, and that makes it really easy. So you can do that there. And I appreciate any way that you choose to support me, even if it's just following me, subscribing to my YouTube channel, leaving a like or a comment on my videos. It really, really helps. No matter how you choose to support me, I very much appreciate it because you allow me to do what I am most passionate about in this life as a job. And I could not thank you enough. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you next time that we